United States into Iran. 48 hours non-stop. You know that they had 2 pilots on them? And you know why they carry 2 pilots? You don't stay up for 48 hours. You sleep and the other man fly. You sleep, the other man fly. Government, my friends in the PNP, is a continuum. It's a relay. And so if you win the election, all you'll be doing is this government pass on the country to you. So what is good? What is good? What good is happening in Jamaica? Right? We don't hear it. Because you are opposition? No. You are wrong. You are wrong. If the economy grow, you blame the Statistical Institute of Jamaica. Say them a tell lie. You know, I was thinking about this today and I was saying to myself, you know, these groups in Jamaica that we call civil society groups, they don't worth a penny. They are more. I don't even know if they are aligned politically. But we need some independent thinkers in Jamaica. People to speak the truth. Right? People to speak the truth. Now, is the commissioner of police misleading the government? When the commissioner, remember now, it's not the government come up with the statistics, you know. Is not the minister, is not coming out of the Ministry of National Security. It's coming from the operations. It's police, no police statistics, you know. And if the police say murders are down by 46%, you know if you believe them? Yeah? If the Statistical Institute says poverty is down to 8.2%, we must not believe them? What type of nonsense is this? What type of absolute garbage are we talking about? Right? And this is what we have for an opposition? No. Well, that you have gotten so much support suggests that something is wrong in the country. Because you have to at least acknowledge. And you know, I went through this on Sunday night. You have to acknowledge the progress that the country has made. And if you want, if listen, I must go to let me I never plan to do all of this tonight. It's getting a little bit. You know the genesis of politics. It's about ideas. Politics is about ideas. For example, when the People's National Party say that they can't disclose their ideas because the government is going to steal it, the People's National Party is being, give me a word, unpatriotic. The People's National Party is being unpatriotic. If you have an idea, Mr. Golding, and the idea can help the country, and you don't tell us the idea, you don't deserve to be Prime Minister. You are being unpatriotic. Yes? You cannot say you have ideas to help Jamaica and you hold on to them till you go in a power. That's not selfishness, man. And let me ask you a question. If you give out the idea and the government implement the idea, you think the people them are fools, sir? You don't think the people them will say you are the man of ideas? You know, Mr. Siaga, God rest his soul in peace. You listeners, go back and read Mr. Siaga's budget presentations. Go back and read Eddie Siaga. Eddie Siaga put ideas on the table. He never held back. When Eddie Siaga stood up in Parliament to give a budget presentation, you got the vision. You saw what he would have done for the country. That's a patriotic Jamaican man, and he was a white man. So don't tell me about you can't share your ideas because government are going to steal them. No. Because your interest must not be to win power. It's not about power, you know. It's not about the acquisition of power. It's about the desire to serve. A patriotic Jamaican is not interested in power. You know what they say of power? That it corrupts. And when it is absolute, it corrupts absolutely. It's not about power. It's about serving my nation, my country. Doing my best for my country. And if it means that I lose the election, but I have given my best to my country. Those are the type of leaders we want. We don't want people who are hungry for power. We do not want to put power in the hands of people who are hungry for power and can only see the acquisition of power as the means. We want people who will serve the country. Give us your ideas, man. Put them on the table. Put them on the table. And then let the people decide. Let the people decide. Right? All right. Tari? It's Tari.
Good evening, neighbor.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Boy, your 15 minutes, you know, it's time is your 15 minutes. Can you wrap up in 15?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, man, I can do that. Good evening, listeners, by the way. I'm just really gonna add to what neighbor said. You know, neighbor really just gave us a comprehensive. To be honest, I don't even think I really need to go into anything else really, but I'm just gonna really add to what he has said. And you know, neighbor, the part, especially when he spoke about our various civil society groups and various youth groups in society, that hit
Speak up
me.
a little, Tari.
You hearing me any better?
Yes.
Right, I was saying that hit me because I was recently applying for one of the youth groups because my friend sent me one of the links. I'm not gonna name the group, but it had some options that they said they should tick what applies to you, right? So they had like ghetto, not ghetto, they had inner city youth, they had I think they had some relating to gender and whatnot. Neighbor, when I tell you, say I look on the options and I see LGBTQ youth, neighbor, fastest me close that. I say, yeah, man, and I hate this.
Wow.
Because, neighbor, I was at a loss for words because I'm saying, so this is the undertone of what these so-called groups are promoting in our society?
Yes.
So I would say shocked.
Sorry, Keon, you didn't send me the number at all. I looked for it last night when I came off and I didn't see it. Why? I tell you to inbox me the number so that we could talk. Keon, send me the number, please. Go ahead, Tari.
Right. So I was shocked, but I mean, I guess not shocked enough because I know that has been a prevalent thing in society, if I would say, right? So, but anyways, separate and apart from that, though, I know Jamaica Girl would have sent you some videos.
Yes, what happens is that when I get them on WhatsApp, I have to upload them to the system for them to show and play. So it takes a little bit of producing it. I never had the time today.
Oh,
I just came in and had to just come straight. So that's what I'm doing. So
Okay.
I'll try and do that for tomorrow.
All right, cool. Well, oh wait, I don't know if Jamaica girl told you, but I will be here tomorrow.
Yes, that's fine. Tomorrow
Yeah.
is Thursday.
No man, tomorrow is Wednesday.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna be here tomorrow because I have to help out with graduation. But I had told you that I wanted to speak on the JTA.
The JTA, yes.
But given that I only have 10 minutes, I'm not really gonna be so comprehensive with it. But I'm gonna just speak to something that I saw recently. Whereas the president-elect of the JTA, let me see if I can find back the image. The president-elect of the JTA, Mr. Mark, I believe his name is Mark Malabver, if I'm not mistaken. This does give me a second here. Yes, I found it. Good. Right. Mark Malabver, yes. Where he would have said he's the incoming JTA president, and he had said that the government's latest wage offer to the teachers is unacceptable. Right? And that's coming from a recent Jamaica Observer article. But neighbor, they often say there's smoke with there's never smoke without fire. Right? And what struck the nerve for me though was I did some digging into this person. Did some digging. And my digging led me to someone who has a known portfolio responsibility for the People's National Party.
Yes.
And his portfolio responsibility that he has for the People's National Party is one in respect to water, environment, and climate change.
Yes.
So I said to myself, okay, not unusual. So let me do further research. So neighbor, Wikipedia would have told me that the Jamaica Teachers Association was created in 1964, and it was a merger of several different teacher unions. And they would have positioned themselves as the champion for educators, the nation's educators, right? And they would have had numerous strikes in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s to demand better pay, fair pay, right? And better conditions. And no one is saying that you can't do that, right? However, at some point, the mantle that they would have had as in terms of being a quote-unquote independent advocate, I would say that I am one to believe that that has faded, neighbor. And yes, I'll tell you why I think that has faded. I want you to look at the recent Jamaica Teaching Council bill that has been passed by the legislative branch of government. Now, the whole point of the JTC bill is to essentially regulate the teaching profession, you could say. So just as how lawyers and doctors have, the lawyers would be on the bar, the doctors have their licenses, and every amount, I don't remember how much number of years it is for each, but a certain number of years they have to go back and essentially retake a test to essentially renew that license, you could say. Correct?
Yes.
So the JTC bill now sought to essentially regulate the profession, right? And create it in such a way whereas, okay, they will have license, we're gonna professionalize the position that is full of professionals, you could say, right? That is what Senator Minister Dana Morris Dixon sought to do. All of a sudden, you hear the teachers coming out and complaining against the bill, saying that, it's a betrayal to the educators, and it is punitive, and you're seeking to change the profession, and they're trying to move too fast with it, man. We don't want to move too fast with it. Suppose a teacher wants to still use their 70 style of education in 2025. I, as a teacher, should be allowed to do that, right? So this was the opposition to the Teaching Council bill. And the more I researched, the more I wondered, but why is the JTA against a bill that all the bill seeks to do is professionalize the profession, if I could say, and regulate the profession? That's all the bill seeks to do. It doesn't seek to do anything else. So I came across a few articles, neighbor. One of it being a Jamaica Observer article, and I'm gonna read a part of it. From Mark Smith, former president of the Jamaica Teachers Association, where it says, "The teachers of Jamaica will not accept what we consider a betrayal. Nevertheless, we continue our advocacy, a call for unity among our ranks. The truth is, there is only one group that benefits from a weakened JTA, and that is whichever party forms government." We must never forget that. Both parties have their fingerprints on this bill, and so let us not be divided in our attempts to move forward, said Smith. That was what President Mark Smith would have said, former president of the JTA. I'm going to read it further. However, Crawford said the opposition should not be confused with the government regarding the JTC bill. Everybody knows that the PNP is the education party, and when I was sitting there today, I don't know if it's the devil or it's God, but Comrade Peter Bunting reported to me that the JTA president said, in an effort to go on like they are fair, they can't trust none of the two parties. I'm going to read that last point where he said, but Comrade Peter Bunting reported to me that the JTA president reported to Damian Crawford. Reported to me that the JTA president said, in an effort to go on like they are fair, they can't trust none of the two parties. So I said, oh, so the JTA was never impartial and fair. Okay, let me continue reading. So it says, on what basis you go negotiate, on what basis you're going to negotiate with government and government tell you a lie? How me get in it? What can go so? He asked while addressing the People's National Party, not Patrick Divisional Conference on Sunday night. There are some people who try to sell themselves as non-aligned, and in trying to sell themselves as non-aligned, when dog bite them beat puss. When puss never then nowhere at all, added Damian Crawford. Crawford claimed that the opposition has been lobbying on behalf of teachers. If there's anybody fighting for the teachers at this time, it is the opposition. And he, Mark Smith, might not know because he didn't come to my speech. He came to the minister's speech. So if he wanted to lead both, he should have attended both, he said. And with all the fight, when me a fight to go on, like the truth don't matter, the man say he can't trust none. Well, the teachers know because me a teacher too. I was the one who brought most of these things to light. So if you feel like you never want to labor right alone, then no say nothing. But it hurt my heart with the effort that I have placed to defend the teachers, he added. That would have been Mr. Crawford. So I said, oh. So Crawford would have been expressing his disappointment with the Jamaica Teachers Association over their perceived neutrality. You're
gonna have to make the link. Gonna have to make the link now, Tari, because we're heading towards that point.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
I'm gonna make the link, man. Their perceived neutrality, and they essentially, he's saying that they did not sufficiently challenge the government's position. And he would, and as Peter Bunting would have said, the association is trying to act fair and impartial and independent when they know that they are not. So I said, oh, so everything start click to me now, neighbor. Someone say, okay, so that means to say then that what Mr. Crawford is saying here is that the JTA, knowing what the JTA is about, knowing that the JTA is supposed to be aligned to the opposition, them should have lick out against the government more. That's what he's saying. And he is then therefore saying that, hey, the JTA should have never tried to act as if they are independent. They should never try to act as if they are unbiased. They should just show their orange shirt all the time.
Who is making that claim?
Mr. Crawford. That is a claim that is being presented here. That which remember, you know, Peter Bunting said the JTA is trying to act fair, right? Which means he and Mr. Crawford know that the JTA is not fair and knows that they are in line with the opposition, which also therefore means that they want the JTA to lick out more against the government. They know this. They been know this. As a matter of fact, in the article, as Jamaica Girl pointed out, Damian Crawford said that the PNP has always been the party to stand up for the teachers, when that is unwholly true. And that is, well, when that is not true, I should say. Right? So, when I saw this neighbor, I really said to myself, boy, oh boy. So the teacher them really willing to hold the students them like me hostage just because them not support one same thing. Mighty God of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Neighbor, I was flabbergasted. Flabbergasted. And I say flabbergasted because in my
Are you
mind,
saying to me, sir, that it is now clear that the JTA is aligned to the People's National Party?
yes, neighbor, and it's been clear. And when I look at their,
it's an affiliate. It's an affiliate of the People's National Party.
yes,
The teachers' union in Jamaica, sir.
mm-hmm.
No,
It's always been an
who's wrong in
affiliate of the
aligning?
People's
But
National Party.
one would expect
I
that.
am not saying that a union does not have the freedom to align with a party. That's what unions are there for. But the union, in being the major education union for teachers across the country, one should expect that the teachers themselves would know what is common sense and what is reasonable. Now, I'm not saying that you're not going to say that you're in opposition to the government against this. I'm not going to say that. But what I'm also saying is, for far too long and on too many occasions, it has seemed that the teachers have been unable to fairly reason out anything when the Labour Party is in power. Yes, and I'm going to say that. You know why I say this, neighbor? I always go back to 2012 to 2016 when the PNP was in power. When the JTC bill was first put in Parliament to be legislated, the JTA had no issues with the bill at the time when the People's National Party was in power. As a matter of fact, the JTA also had no issue with their wages at the time. They had no issue with the wage freezes.
Yeah, but
the
JTA side, there are over 20,000 teachers in Jamaica. I would suspect that within that 20,000, there are teachers supporting either party.
Well, which is true, neighbor, but remember, everything starts from the head of the stream. Everything starts from the executive, right? And everything, as we say, everything starts from the top, So everything is always going to mark back to you as the president, and then it just goes along down that line.
But the JTA elected Royal Reid at one time, yeah?
Yes.
Who became Minister of Education under a Labour Party government. So, well, let me leave that. You are saying to me that you are taking tonight that there is it something that concerns us? Is it something that we should be concerned about? Is there any difficulty here?
I think it is something that we should be concerned about, neighbor, because what I am seeing here is an association that I really thinks lack reason. You're talking about 20,000 teachers strong. And neighbor, as a matter of fact, there are a lot of teachers who don't even subscribe to the JTA. There are a lot of teachers who are not
not members, right?
Not members of the JTA, neighbor. And I look at this and I say to myself, as I would have said to you earlier, no one is saying you can't have a position. We're not disputing that. What we are then saying, neighbor, is one should be able to reasonably look at something and say, okay, here is where we disagree, here is where we agree. But for the entire period of the Labour Party administration, I've only seen you disagree with every single thing. I've never seen the JT agree with anything, neighbor. Not one thing.
Is the JT an affiliate of the People's National Party? Huh?
Neighbor, I have said this time and time again, and Aluna Samba said it in a nice way. They have ensured that they fill these various civil society and civic society institutions with their PNP operatives. I don't know if you would have remembered when, I think it was for 3 days, where the teachers decided to strike, and I had to, and those 3 days would have essentially been taken back out of my summer holiday because the teachers decided to go on strike. What I've witnessed time and time again is when the teachers negotiate with the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Education, if them don't receive it them way, them are go just always throw a tantrum. That's how I have always seen it. They always throw a temper tantrum when they don't get something their way. Instead of trying to, and the negotiations, neighbor, boy, I really don't know what more to say, neighbor. I've never seen a set of I've never seen a set of people who are, boy, would make me question.
You know, so politics has gotten infused into too many areas of our lives here in Jamaica, and it ought to concern us very much. Miss Jamaica girl, what's the latest on KC? I'd like to get a little update on that so that I can know how to proceed from here on in. Can you just help me out, please? Tell me what's happening with KC. I would be happy to take him in a few minutes. It's actually 7 minutes after 8 o'clock. We are behind time. Talk to me, please, my dear. Okay, didn't get him. Don't know what is happening in your center. Okay, I tell you what you do. Who is online there that we can bring up? Dr. Rod. Let's see if we can get him on. Invite that one. Good night, sir. Kuta? Is Kuta wanted? Go ahead, sir. Listen, take down this man, you hear, please. And don't listen to me, man. All right. So Tari.
Yes, neighbor, I'm here.
Yes. So you are pointing out to the listeners that ultimately, or what you're basically saying is that the leadership of the JTA are not going to be treating the government fairly when it comes on to the salary negotiations, and you want Jamaicans to understand that their posture is partisan.
Yes, it has always been so, neighbor. And as you raised that point, neighbor, remember I was watching the JTA debates for their various presidential candidates. And one of the main topics that came up was performance-based pay. And you know what performance-based pay is? You are paid based on your performance, how the students essentially perform. And a lot of discrepancies and issues were raised because someone was saying, well, what if you have a teacher from school A that teaches less students and doesn't have to work a lot and gets a performance that he or she needs, versus a teacher from school B who has more students, right? Probably students with special needs in her class has to be working more, right? Doesn't necessarily get the performance that she wants or he wants, right? But at the end of the day, as said, that teacher from school B is putting in more input than the teacher from school A, right, neighbor?
Yes.
And I was saying to myself, well, if we're going to work with a performance-based system, I would think then that the idea would be that the discretion is up to, I would say, what the schools deem fit. Because if we're gonna talk about performance-based pay, remember the ministry would essentially, well, I know for some the ministry will send it directly to the teachers, and I know for some the ministry sends what the teachers may have not received to the schools, and then the schools would then deal with everything else.
I thought just dropped in my mind that that the church should pray for Mr. Holness. I'm gonna ask them to do it. Because I think that Holness is not just there are institutions in Jamaica, sir, that seem determined to recapture Jamaica. Yes. Listen. We have to do better than this, man. I mean, this alignment, this political alignment, and maybe Jamaica is being realigned politically. Yes, maybe. Because if we do not do that, we're not going to be able to realign economically. Yes, it is something that I will have to I will have to look into a little bit more. Anyway, anything else on your mind, Tari?
Neighbor, all I will say is I know the teachers have their struggles, I know the teachers have their problems, just like any other profession. What I will say though is, do not drag the students and your the persons who you mentor into all of this. Do not drag us into it. We come to school to get an education. We know that you have your problems, we know that you have your concerns, but do not let us be the burden as a result of your actions. Do not let us as students have to face the burden of what you complain about. Do not let
how are the students to be affected though?
Well, neighbor, when the teachers decide that they want to strike for 3 days, 1 week, and there's no one at school to teach that lesson or that syllabus. As a matter of fact, I remember when the
don't
teachers
drag the students into the political
don't drag us into it, man. I remember when the teachers striked and there was an idea to have 6 formers teach classes. I was like, what?
Uh-huh.
Don't drag us into it.
Oh my
And it's
goodness.
unbecoming of a set of people who call themselves professionals. It's
Educators.
unbecoming.
Educators are playing politics.
I would expect educators to be well-reasoned people.
Yes.
That is my legitimate expectation.
Educators in Jamaica are playing politics.
Yes.
And what you are saying is that don't drag the students into it, yeah?
Don't drag us into it. Yes, we understand the need that you have, and we understand that you want to eat a food and get your thing, but don't drag we in it. Please, I beg. We never asked you in it in the first place.
Well, stay on the line. Soji wants to talk to you. Go ahead, Soji.
You know, neighbor, you mentioned something, real talk when you say capture. You use that word capture. And it is a thing, neighbor. I think a board like the JTA should never be politically aligned. It should never be. If people want to go to vote, they go to vote. But it's always been no. The incoming president is someone who have run on a ticket for the PNP.
Well, why haven't we heard much more about this, sir? Because the system of education in Jamaica itself, I'm urging my listeners to get a hold of the Patterson report and probably read it. I just when I spoke to Mr. Crawford on Saturday, afterwards I said I didn't take him to the Patterson report.
Yes.
You remember the Rose program, Soji?
Not too sure.
Well, that was before Soji was Tari was born. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Do you remember Maxine Henry Wilson?
Yes, yeah, man. Yeah.
Saying that every child can learn, every child must learn. You remember that?
Yes.
And you remember that the PNP went into the NHT to take out $4 billion, I think?
Yeah, man.
For the education transformation.
Yes.
I think that was a Rose program, and you know that the opposition at the time, after some discussion, supported it because it was agreed at the time that education was too important a matter for there to be a partisan approach to it.
Yes. Which doesn't make any sense, neighbor.
Things like education, national security,
crime fighting, yes.
Health. Those things should be taken out of the political frame.
Yes. I believe that too. Of course.
And I think there has to be a national consensus.
National consensus on those issues.
Social development objectives. Because you cannot grow. Hold on. You cannot grow a society that is unhealthy. That's health. You cannot grow a society where there is violence and crime. That's national security. And you cannot grow a society if your people are not educated. Informed. Education.
Yes.
So we don't need to have a divide on education, sir.
Yes.
Quite frankly, I think that whichever party forms government, there are some areas that should just continue.
Yes.
In terms of national partnership and agreement.
Yes. Because, neighbor, look at this, neighbor. It takes you 20 years to come up with a plan that you want to tell me you have all these teachers on the board and everything. 20 years. Should it be that no consensus cannot take when it comes to the JTU, the bill? You want to tell me the teachers bill? You want to tell me no consensus can be had on it? No, you want to tell me there's nothing that can be done to make it agreed on? Is it that they want to have their cake and eat it? Is that the teachers want to have because they have how many % on the board and they want more? So that means they want to be in charge of their self-neighbor. Can that make sense?
The Prime Minister said something the other day. And many people criticize him for it when he said something along the line that the government don't need the opposition. The Prime Minister was not saying that we must do away with the People's National Party. He's not saying.
I know, but neighbor, let me explain it to you. Let me explain it to you, neighbor. Neighbor, I'm a JLP supporter. Let me tell you. But
you are?
Wait, no. Yes, sir. And I tell you this. I'm a fierce JLP supporter. You see, if they do foolishness, I will let them know. I'll stand on their head because we hold them accountable. I don't cult. I'm not a cult JP supporter. I'm a die-hearted JP supporter, but not a cult. If they do wrong, I will stand on their head, and I'm not afraid. It happens all the time. I'm not afraid to say what is on my mind. If wrong is wrong, that is my thing. If you're doing wrong, I'm not going to side with you. That it doesn't matter who you are. And that's my mantra in life. My dad have taught me that. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're a P or you're a D. If you're wrong, you're wrong.
Yes, sir.
So, and I cannot support you being wrong, if you understand what I'm saying. So the thing is, put in the JTA, because guess what now? Wage freezes happened for like maybe 7 years under PNP, and they agreed on it. They agreed on it. No, they have seen the largest increase in their history. Neighbor, the largest increase, and they're still going at the government for more. And I can tell you, I bet you, neighbor, the government, PNP from the next government, then take a wage freeze right away. So it can't continue. They're holding the government hostage for no reason.
But then they would have to get their members to vote on that.
Yes, yes. And then we agree on it. Remember, they agreed on the wage freeze, you know, neighbor. They did. They did agree on the wage freeze. Just imagine that. No, you have gotten the largest increase in your history under this government, and you're still fighting them. You're still going toe-to-toe with line that you want more money, you want this. Allow the government to build up the reserve and then can give you more. Because listen to this. When PNP said cap the salary increase, the government said no, neighbor. If the government didn't care, they would have go ahead and cap it. The government said no, neighbor. They want to can give them a nice increase if the money is there. Then you want a better government than that, neighbor. You want a man who go and say, if the country make money, you're going to get some of it. Instead of where you did agree upon for a morning. You want somebody who is better than that?
You know, sir, the fight for scarce benefits and political spoils have created a polarized society in which we are perpetually at war. If we are going to progress as a country, you hear Soji, we're going to have to examine that statement that the Prime Minister made. Okay? We have too much opposition.
Yes, yes.
We have too much opposition to progress in Jamaica, sir. Not the PNP.
It is.
Huh?
No, no, no.
You get the context.
You know what a gentleman said to me this evening, neighbor?
Yes.
He have never seen Jamaica economic look like this before. He have never seen Jamaica. He's just a random man I'm talking to. And he said, I've never seen Jamaica economy looking like this before. Never.
You know how I see Jamaica, sir? I see Jamaica as like a man with a noose around his neck for years. And right now, little by little, the noose is being untightened.
Yes.
And he's beginning to breathe. You know, he's beginning to breathe.
Talk to neighbor. Talk to neighbor.
Where he can now feel a sense of life coming back.
Yes.
Jamaica is a largely underdeveloped country, you know, Soji.
Should not have been, neighbor. Should not have been.
For years, you know.
Should not have been. Yes, should not have been.
I wonder if people know that the sucking of the salt has been going on for years. Yes?
You know, neighbor, I go and say this, and I hear they're putting out this point. How much member of parliament do we have? I'm just saying something to you. 63?
Yes.
Yes. All right. 63 member of parliament. How much public sector workers do we have?
Well, hundreds of thousands.
Over 70,000? Over 70,000?
Well, I think it's more than that.
The teacher. All right. I'm just saying. And every single one of them, neighbor, would have gotten between 20 to 200 and plus salary increase in the last wage package. What they are running with is that they are saying the government give themselves 300% increase and give them minimal increase. But it is only 63 member of parliament. It's over 70,000 plus public sector. So they would have gotten many more time on the 300 where what the member of parliament get. So this is one of the things they are running with. The government give themselves this. Why them couldn't get that? You understand? But I tell you something, neighbor. I saw a policeman and I was talking to him. And he said to me, so I said, oh, you're on the overtime ago. I said, Soji, I don't know overtime, you know what I do? They go coach and play football at evening time. You hear me say him not have to do no overtime. You hear me just say to you, one time that could never be said out of a policeman mouth, neighbor. Me not ask you. That could never be said.
You mean he had to do overtime to get a little money?
Of course, back in ideas. No, him say him not have to do that. Him no business with that. Him a go find other things do in his spare time. You hear me say to you, say, him a go find, and if you talk to most of them, that's what they'll tell you. You understand? When you look at my young son, 20-year-old, his salary him a come home with every month. No have a bill in his life to pay. He can turn himself in a man's stand at 10 years. I'm telling you, neighbor. If him save all that money, time not pay no bills. He live a camp. He can turn himself in a man's stand at 10 years. I'm telling you, what the salary is getting. Because he can save and start his own business and do him because he always say one that he want to be an entrepreneur. Neighbor, we have to wake up and smell the coffee, neighbor. And we have to understand. We cannot bring politics into everything and to break down Jamaica because Jamaica will go back. It will go back, neighbor. It will go back.
And then so how is it that Undecided is polling 3% lead for PNP? Or how come?
How I would want to know the same thing, neighbor. I would read because neighbor, look at what I look at, neighbor. Neighbor, I don't know if you read the Instagram. You ever see when they post something where the PNP is looking against the government, how the people drag them gum? So I'm wondering who they're polling. You ever see the comments? You ever go to the comment sections when the cleaner post anything?
Well, I mostly do that.
You ever see how they drag them in the mouth? So who are these people they're polling? That is my question. Who are these people they're polling? You understand me? And then hear this no neighbor. They hear this no neighbor. Hear this story from the cleaner the other day. Andrew Holness leading.
Is there a danger though? Is there a danger though that the PNP is likely to believe its own rhetoric, its own deception? Because quite frankly, and I'm not, guys, believe me, this is all instinctive based on my own talk to people and just looking at the political scene. I can't see where the PNP is ahead in any election, in any poll right now. No talk.
Neighbor, it's the truth you're talking about.
Take off your labor right hand.
It is yes. It's true, but neighbor, how could there be? Neighbor, listen, neighbor, I've been in Jamaica for 51 years. And at the last 9 years, I didn't know that taxpayer money could spend so much and develop Jamaica.
By the way, coming back to that, by the way, somebody has just made a good point that if you look at social media throughout the day, you see the teachers in the classroom, they're on live. Me see all one teacher I do DJ in our classroom, I beg money. What is happening in the classrooms?
Well, as you say, they see what they're seeing. They're not blind, they see what they're seeing, neighbor.
I think it's something that the minister needs to look into, that the teachers are taking up class time with lies.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Some of them are look man.
Yes.
Yes? Yeah, see, some of them are look man and send out sweet talk to get
yes.
teachers in classrooms.
Yes. Yes, neighbor. But neighbor, I was going to respond to a point that you said. What I wanted to say to you is that what's the Gleaner headline? Andrew Holness is leading Mark Golding, but the masses say none of them is good. Can you imagine these people putting their headline? Andrew Holness is leading Mark Golding, according to the Dan Anderson poll, but the masses say none of them is good for the country. How could you come up with that, neighbor? How in the earth could you have come up with that, with such a statement? You understand what I'm saying?
But as a precursory reading of the politics in Jamaica, Soji, the PNP is not ahead 3 points, man.
Cannot be. And we know that's a lie. Neighbor, you remember this funeral from this gentleman who he came out and talk about the fake poll where his wife was running for a member of parliament and then run a poll and kick her out because they said the people them don't want her. They run a fake poll on her. and the husband was bashing them at the funeral. Said they killed her off because of that. She take it to heart because she knew she was worthy of being the candidate.
By the way, the General Secretary of the PNP says that it's an independent poll. Which poll is he saying is an independent
poll? That is it. Which poll? He said that I must be a junk man. He could never say that, man. He could never say that.
You're saying Dr. Campbell was having a drink?
Have to, because remember a man come out and saying see people with orange band take the poll. We don't listen. Orange band taking the poll. So how could it be an independent poll? A brother came and refused and said he saw people in orange band taking the poll. Then it's a poll. This last poll that they came out with. So how could it be an independent poll when it's PNP people taking the poll?
So let me ask you a question. Blue Dot is an aligned poll?
All right, look at it, neighbor. They did not, the things that the topics and how they go about what they're doing can show you that it's right down the middle, neighbor. They did. So the 4-point lead that the JLP had would have really seemed like something that makes sense. And the rest,
but what I want you to answer me is what makes a poll independent?
What makes a poll independent is when they poll even amount of people and hear their views. They poll even amount of people from their take, so they know. So they would go into a PNP area and then they go into a JLP area. So they don't just take it, say one side and just in that side. You understand? They go to both sides. That's what they do. That's what Blue Dot do. And in some areas they poll more people than some, because they want to get another result on what is happening on the ground. So if you realize their polling was thorough on what they're doing, and they explained everything to you. So you would not say there was a bias. You could not say there was a bias in what they tell you and what is happening, because it was what is right in front of you. They're telling you. You understand? Because
but I think that independence means that the poll is not aligned to any organization, party, or individual. Yes? Tari?
Yes, neighbor, you are correct in saying that. And I also wanted to state categorically for those who are listening too. I'm gonna give you 3 years: 2016, 2020, and the poll that just came out recently. 2016, Don Anderson pointed to a 3% lead for the People's National Party in 2016, saying that
do you have that?
I'm gonna give you the numbers. I'm gonna give you the numbers right now. I'm gonna give you that numbers right now, right? Because I think we need to actually analyze what does that mean. In February, all right. So from February, well, it should have been closer to the election still, but from February 13 to 16, amongst 1,093 people, with a margin of error of plus or minus 3%, showed the PNP with 30.8% popular support, slightly ahead of the JLP on 27.5%. The PNP has moved 3.8 percentage points since January, when Anderson conducted his last poll, while the JLP has improved by 5 percentage points. The JLP won that election by 1 seat. And if we look at that numbers for that general election, it was, let me find it here, it was 50.1% to 49.7%, right? Which aided in the JLP winning 32 seats to 31 seats. I then go to 2020. Now, where the 2020 poll, the Don Anderson
Speak up, sir. Please speak up.
Yes, the Don Anderson poll from 2020. Let me see if I find it right. The Don Anderson poll. So it's different polls, but I'm just gonna read the ones from 2020. I'm excluding Bill Johnson here. Don Anderson, the first Don Anderson poll, February 2020, had the JLP leading by 8. Then the next Don Anderson poll, the 23rd of July to August 18, had the JLP by 16%. The next Don Anderson poll in August of 2020 had the JLP leading by 12%. Now, if we look at the blue dot polls, if we're gonna what you call that, compare them, for 2020, the blue dot poll, the only blue dot poll that I'm seeing here would have been from July to August, where they had the JLP leading by 18%. The only poll that came basically close to what had happened on election day, because on election day, the JLP led by 14.3%. The only poll that came close to that was Jamaica Observer's Bill Johnson poll, where they had the JLP leading by 14%.
What was Don Anderson's numbers in 2020?
Don Anderson's numbers in 2030, the most recent one in 2020 had the JLP leading by 12%. The most recent one for Bill Johnson had the JLP leading by 14%. The most recent one for Blue Dot in 2020 had the JLP leading by 18%. The JLP won the election with a lead of 14.3%. Which means that Bill Johnson poll had it very accurate here. The only reason I'm subtracting Bill Johnson from this, as you know, Bill Johnson had unfortunately passed and everything, and Jamaica Observer hasn't really done any polls. But what am I saying here? The Don Anderson polls, and by the way, let me just go to 2025 real quick too. And the 2025 poll had the PNP leading by 3%, as we saw. What I've recognized with Don Anderson polls is that Anderson polls typically have a way of overestimating the performance of the People's National Party.
Hold on. Because you're a researcher, you know, you're going to have to prove that.
Yes,
you are saying that,
typically,
Anderson, you are saying, historically overestimate PNP's strength.
Yes, and I'm gonna show you why, neighbor. Right?
Okay.
I'm gonna show you why.
Well, this is interesting. Have you read Carl Stone, sir?
Carl Stone?
Yes.
No, I haven't. I should take a read into it. I should.
Well, okay. Don't worry yourself.
Yes.
You'll get there.
Okay. But I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna use 2020 as one result. No, yes. I know that pollsters tend to try to keep their results as close as possible because they don't want to be off, or they don't want to really.
Let me ask you this story before you move on. What is Don Anderson's margin of error in this poll?
In this poll, his margin of error, if I do recall, let me find it.
You have to keep your mouth in the speaker.
I believe his margin of error was same plus or minus 3.
3%.
Yeah.
How much is the PNP leading by in the poll?
What you mean in this 2025 poll now?
In this poll, yeah, one published yesterday.
Oh, the PNP is leading by 3%.
What is the margin of error?
Plus or minus 3. It's within the margin of error.
But Mr. Anderson said it's not a statistical dead heat. No. Why you laugh?
Oh boy. So neighbor, that's not a statistical dead heat, but
no. Let's go again. Let's go again. The poll's margin of error. Explain to the listeners what margin of error means, Tari.
Margin of error is essentially what you would call it's how much a poll may essentially deviate by from the correct or exact value or the targets that it may have essentially.
Yes.
If I could put it like that.
Right. In other words, the weight of the evidence can be correct 3% either way. The weight of the conclusion.
Right.
Yes.
Neighbor.
So if you are 3 points ahead, you could be 3 points behind.
True.
All right. So the Labour Party really could be dead heat with dead even with the PNP.
Well, that could be true.
Could be true. No man, let's go it again. If the margin of error is 3%, remember now, it is south and north, plus or minus 3%. So if you are ahead by 3%, you could add 3 to that or take away 3.
Oh yeah, yes, you can do that. Yes, neighbor.
So the best report for this poll is to say that the parties are locked in a statistical dead heat. So I wonder if somebody can find me the TVJ. I listen to me.
The
I need
TVJ video itself.
Yes, where Anderson says that he cannot say that it is a statistical dead heat. Anybody have it there?
Neighbor, maybe he knows something we don't know.
That's what he said. That's what I heard him saying.
Maybe he knows something we don't know. So there's also that.
Barry is Barry anywhere?
Where's Barry?
Barry Mighton. Is Barry Mighton anywhere here? I want to ask Barry something on this confusing let me see if I can. Hold on. Barry is an educator, he can teach us something. Barry?
Yes, neighbor.
Good night to you, Barry.
Good night to you too.
I am quite bemused, a little confused. Help me out here. If a poll starts.
Hold on, neighbor.
Yes.
Question. Did Don Anderson point out the undecided percentage in that poll?
No, I haven't seen the poll. All I've heard is the
or listeners, did you hear Don Anderson point out the undecided percentage in that poll? Because I think that is also another thing. I think that's also another factor that needs to be considered too, which is why I even said in the first place the 2020 poll for Dan would have been off, because yes, persons are saying 12% is closer to 14%. But let us be clear, in the 2020 poll that Dan Anderson did, he had an undecided percentage of 38%, right? With the JLP at 37, PNP at 25, and undecided at 38%, meaning that poll is not going to be
20 minutes.
Meaning that poll is not going to be as predictive as others, as opposed to a Blue Dot poll, which had the Labour Party predicted at 52%, so they were off by 5.1% for the actual election day result, whereas the PNP would have been at 34% and they were off by negative 8.8% as it relates to the actual election day thing. And I think the undecided for that one, if I can find it back, I believe the undecided was around 14%, which is why I'm even saying if it is that the undecided is still a huge chunk, I think that is gonna not make it as predictive as one would want it to be, which is why I even asked for that percentage too.
Yes. Barry?
Yes, neighbor, I'm here.
Barry, explain to the listeners the statistical margin of error in a poll.
All right, so a statistical margin of error. Normally when they say, they give you the raw numbers. They give you the numbers. Say, for example, they say Mr. Holness has a 4% lead. And the margin of error is 3%. The margin of error could be, it means that Mr. Holness could be 7% or it could be 1%.
Yes.
So it goes, the margin of error is positive, which favors Mr. Holness, it could be 7%. So you add 3% to the 4%.
Why in statistical analysis is it necessary to have a margin of error?
All right. In statistical analysis, it's necessary to have a margin of error because you are doing a sample, right? And when you do a sample, neighbor, there's no guarantee that the sample that you do is going to be 100% accurate.
So it's not
right?
a perfect science.
It's not
Right.
a perfect science, right?
Okay.
So as a result of that, you based on your sample and your hypothesis, you are going to look at to say, all right, based on the size of your sample, it determines the margin of error that you actually ascribe to the sample that you give.
Okay, so it is because they always have this 3% though, whether it is 1,500, 1,200. Is so the sample size.
There's a calculation.
To
There's
the
a
population.
calculation that is used. Yes, it's a calculation for the population. I don't remember. I just did it recently, and for some reason, it kind of escaped me. In terms of how you actually calculate the margin of error.
All right.
But it's a science that you use to determine how you actually ascribe the margin of error to a sample.
Fantastic. Help me now with the interpretation. I'm coming there, Carl. With the interpretation. So when Anderson says that the PNP is 3 points ahead, include the margin of error there and explain that to the listeners.
All right. So if Dan Anderson said that the PNP is 3 points ahead, it means that it could be that the PNP is 6 points ahead, or it could be that the PNP is 3 points, or it could be a statistical dead heat.
Correct.
So when you either add or take away 3 points from the margin. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes. And therefore, when he says the Labour Party is 3 points behind, there could be further
it
behind.
Means there could be 6 points behind, as well as it could be a statistical dead heat for the Jamaica Labour Party.
Repeat those 2 points from me, Barry, because I think it is very important.
All right. So in the margin of error, it means that it could be 3 points ahead or 3 points behind, depending on, and that is basically what you call. That's why you call it a margin of error, right? And that is ascribed to based on the sample size. And it could be 2.5, it could be 3%, it could be 2%, depending on the sample size that you use and the calculation, how it works. So to say that if a leader is if somebody in the poll is leading by 4%, possibility exists that when you had the margin of error, if it is favoring that party, then it could be 7%, as well as it could be 1%. In the case of Mark Golden leading 3%, if it is favoring Mark, it could be anywhere from 3, 4, 5, 6%, as well as it could be anywhere from 2, 1, and 0% lead.
Which means, therefore, Barry, that a correct interpretation would be to say that the poll is a statistical dead heat.
Yes, so which means that the poll is a statistical dead heat because the margin of error can be either way, so you can't call it.
But the pollster says it is not.
Just
How
a
could
minute,
he say
neighbor. Just 1 minute, neighbor. Let me just interject right here. Yes, so I heard the comment today. I watched TVJ News today, and I heard Dan Anderson said that it is not a statistical dead heat.
Yes.
No, this is the first time I'm hearing that one party is leading, and the party is leading within the margin of error, and it's not a statistical dead heat. It's the first time I'm hearing that. However, right, so something is not right. Something is not adding up with this poll, right? Because if you look at the lead that the Prime Minister have over the opposition leader, he has a lead of 7%, right? Now, from I have been tracking poll in Jamaica, I have never seen a party leader, right, that is leading his opposition counterpart
and yet the party is behind in the polls, behind in the party standings. I have never seen it before. Usually, when the party leader is leading his opposition counterpart, the party usually lead in the party standings, because in Jamaica we really vote for prime minister. Okay.
And you don't think Holness is a bit of an anomaly in that his persona, his likability?
Well, when they want to term it as anomaly or not, usually the leader of the party usually carries the party. So if the leader is leading, the party essentially is going to lead. That's how I know it, and that's all I've been seeing in all these polls from the years I've been looking at poll results. However, let me clarify something with the margin of error. And you're right. So the higher the sample size, the lower the margin of error. The lower the margin of error. Okay? And the lower the sample size, the higher the margin of error. So let's say, for argument's sake, he's saying that the party, the opposition party is leading by 3%, right? So it is really plus or minus 3%. So the party can either be leading by let's say the standing is 28. So the People's National Party could be up 34 and it could be down 28. Okay? The same thing goes for the other side. The Labour Party could be up 31 if the margin is 31-28. Labour Party could be up 31 and it can be down to 25. Okay? But what is unusual about the poll, and I've listened to Dan today, he's saying that it is not a statistical dead heat, and I wonder why he said that. Why is like he's saying that the margin of error in this particular poll has no bearing, because it's not like the PNP is leading outside the margin of error; they are within the margin of error. I've never seen it. And
as a matter of fact, I think the lead is 2.9%.
No, it's 3%. It's 29 point. I watched. It's like 28.6 to 31.6.
No, man, 29.6 to 32.6.
All right, but it's like 3% difference. Though. It's a 3% difference.
Oh,
right.
I'm hearing somebody saying that the margin of error is 2.3%.
I know. I have to look back, but I think the margin of error. I think I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it. I think the margin of error is about 3%. I think he mentioned 3%. But even if it's 2.3%, it will. That is only 0.7 difference from 3%. Okay.
In essence, the PNP would only be leading by 0.7%.
Exactly, and
which still makes it a dead heat.
Yeah, that is still a dead heat, a statistical dead heat.
I want to ask Barry a question. Barry.
Yes, neighbor.
Let's assume, Barry, for the purpose of this discussion, the poll is correct. Now, I have said earlier that it is the furthest thing from the truth that I have seen in a long time, based on my interactions in Jamaica and on the ground. And I can tell you, I have my ears. Barry, let us assume that the People's National Party is ahead of the Labour Party by 3%. Is that sufficient to win them in the election?
Well, sure, because I mean, you probably looking at 3% margin of error could mean probably a 5 or 6 seat margin. In terms of that could probably mean about 35-36 seats for the PNP.
Yes. Now, how do you arrive at that? Considering a 3% lead across the constituencies, is it a national swing of 3%?
That's basically what he said, neighbor. It's a national swing of 3%, because it's not like he would, when he would have said, all right, let me do it constituency by constituency. He would have done a national poll to get a polls to say if the election were to be called today, right, which party would be winning the election, and by how many seats. He gives you to say this is where the lay of the land is right now. One is at 32 point something percent, and one is at 29 point something percent.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay.
quite likely.
Assuming again, and this is
Yes.
Assuming, Barry, that this poll is even remotely correct, why would Jamaica at this time be inclined to not retain the current government?
Well, what it means,
just before you answer that question, then just a point of interjection now. If the People's National Party is leading by 3%, you're looking at a 33-30 margin. You look like a seat count of 33 seats for the People's National Party, 30 for the Labour Party. The last time with the poll that the Blue Dot poll that just concluded, the Labour Party was leading by 4 percentage points, 1 percentage points outside the margin of error. And when they do the breakdown in terms of the seat counts, that's at 29-34. 34 seats for the Labour Party, 29 for the People's National Party. So if you're looking at a 3% margin difference, you're looking at a 33-30. You can continue.
Give me the average, Carl. Calculate the average for me using both polls. Give me the numbers.
Well, the last poll, I think the Labour Party, it was what, 33-29. The Labour Party was, but the margin of error was 3%. The 33% for the towards the Labour Party, 29% for the People's National Party, a 1 percentage point outside the margin of error, which give the Labour Party a 4% lead and a 1% lead outside the margin of error. This poll is what, a 29.6 for the Labour Party and 32.6 for the People's National Party. So you can see it is hovering around 30% there for either party on average, right? But
I said the possibility exists that if this poll were to hold, you're probably looking at somewhere in the region of a 33, 34, 35 seats, based on if the margin is anything to be believed, you know.
Okay, so would it be fair, Barry, to say at this time, because you're an educator yourself, and to the extent that we want to be intellectually honest here, assuming what we have before us, it appears right now to be a very close election.
Right.
By both polls, Blue Dot and Undecided. Because if you average them, the party seems to be locked into a dead heat.
Right. But what this poll would be saying,
how you explain that, Barry?
What this poll would be saying, neighbor, is that the PNP base would have been a much larger base than the Jamaica Labour Party's base. And the PNP base would have been fully revved up and are willing.
At the time the poll was taken.
Right. Well, at the time the poll was taken. I'm just giving you possible scenarios what could account for.
Yes, and we're hypotheticalizing
right
here now.
So the only thing that could account for this, neighbor, is that the PNP base would be a much larger base than the Jamaica Labour Party's base. And the Jamaica Labour Party's and the PNP base would have been fully engaged and ready. And the Jamaica Labour Party base.
Is there any possibility, Barry, that the pollster weighted the polling towards the PNP? In other words, more PNP people were polled.
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends on. They said he pays the piper calls the tune, you know, and so sometimes in order to a poll is really, it really just has some information out there to kind of boost some confidence. It would the group who actually commissioned the poll. So sometimes you do not want to put out a poll that is not necessarily in favor of you. So you are going to try to find a way to make sure that the poll that you are putting out.
Wouldn't I be correct, Carl? Before you come, wouldn't I be correct in extrapolating, Barry, that a government seeking a third consecutive term to be dead even with the opposition at this time, the advantage would be to the government?
Not necessarily.
I'm
Not
going to say
necessarily.
something before I leave. I don't think I necessarily agree with Barry that the People's National Party base in this election cycle is necessarily larger than the Labour Party base.
No. It was an hypothetical statement to say what could have caused.
But what you have to look at too, Barry, PNP supporters are dieted. Any polls that shows the leader of the Labour Party leading the People's National Party, right? That is not base per base. Because if it was base per base, Mark Golding would have had a significant lead. That's 7 points that Prime Minister is leading by. The Mark Golding would have been leading by that 7 points. So that necessarily doesn't play out if we're going to talk base, party base, against party base. Because if it was a party base, if it was base for base, Mark Golding would have had a significant lead over.
No. You are misunderstanding. You're misunderstanding what I said. So I'm saying what could have actually caused this is that this probably could be indicating that, remember, you didn't just do the poll on the PNP's areas, you did it right across. And what this poll will be suggesting is that there are more PNP who are supporting the opposition leader, as well as the other thing that I probably should have said is that also there could be that some JLP supporters undecided would have actually decided to go with Mark Golding if you were to believe the polls, right? So that could be something that could account for the lead in the poll for the PNP.
But in the Jamaican context, right, I have never seen a poll where the party leader is leading his opposition counterpart, but yet behind in the party standing. And that is why I do not necessarily agree. Hold on. That is why I'm not in agreement with the fact that, people are saying, not just you, Barry, and probably I misunderstand. I do not necessarily agree where people are saying that in this election cycle, based on the poll, based on this poll per se, the Undecided poll, that the People's National Party base is much larger than the Labour Party base. Because if that was the case, the People's National Party, if it is base for base, the People's National Party would have been leading where the leader is concerned, and they would be leading where the party standing is concerned. Now, for a leader,
and I agree with you.
Yeah, but
I'm just saying in an hypothetical situation. Yes.
Yeah, what I want to say now, if you look at it, some skewing of this poll was done to favor the People's National Party. And the reason
why No,
hold on. Say that again, Carl.
Yeah, I said some skewing was done to favor the People's National Party. And the reason why I've come to that conclusion, Dana just said in a statement today that even though it is a 3% lead and it is within the margin of error, it is not a statistical dead heat. I don't know where that comes from. Every poll, even if a party is leading a 1 or 2% outside the margin of error, as in the case with the Blue Dot poll, the Labour Party was just leading by 1% outside the margin of error, and it was still considered a statistical dead heat. So how is it that Dana is saying that this poll finding is not a statistical edit? Well, a statistical dead heat when the margin, when the lead of the People's National Party is within the margin of error. Something is not right.
And that is why I said to you, so if you notice my line of argument is that he who pays the piper calls the tune. And if you commission a poll, or some surrogate of yours commission a poll, you would not want to put out a poll that is not necessarily in favor of you. And that is why sometimes, even within the Jamaica Labour Party, there may be times in their political history that they may have put out polls.
Yeah.
And the poll did not favor them, and you never.
Barry,
you will never
is the Labour Party
fire that poll?
Does the Labour Party not have internal polls?
Yes, of course they do their internal polls, and that is how they actually look at. For example, when you see they would have chosen to remove Robert Chin, right, from South Manchester, it was on the basis of an internal poll. When you hear that Malawi Fort was under the water, it was as a result of internal polls. So they do their internal polling, and as a result of that, you see the Prime Minister would have propped up communities that they think need some help.
Yeah.
Right.
So I asked you earlier, what is? I asked you earlier if it is a positive sign for a government seeking a third consecutive term to be
yes,
polling level with the opposition, and you are saying no. You are saying that this shows an advantage for the opposition.
Well, if that is the case, it shows an advantage for the opposition. But in truth and in fact, neighbor, the reality on the ground, right? And you would have seen it. The most popular political party on the ground now is the Jamaica Labour Party. The most popular leader on the ground is Jamaica Labour Party leader. To think, and when you would have actually had polls which suggest that Jamaica Labour Party is leading in probably 20, 30 or 40 of the 63 constituencies, and to come and see somebody actually put out a poll which is suggesting that Mark Golden, who happens to be probably the least popular person, is
I have a theory.
hierarchy.
I have a theory,
Yes.
Barry, that if a governing party with the type of record that this one has, assuming that the poll is remotely correct, is in a statistical dead heat with the opposition, that the party in government has the advantage.
I would agree. I would agree with that. I would agree.
And I tell you why. No party seeking a third term in government, there will be some amount of fatigue, voter fatigue, some amount of, used to ness that would be in the population. And for them to, at this point, be so competitive, in my view, it is not a good sign for opposition. The opposition at this point,
the question you asked me, don't know,
should be 7 points ahead.
The question you asked me, is it a good thing, or it is always the case? No, it's not. Has always been the case. Normally, at this point, the party in government is normally underwater.
Yes.
That is what I answered to. That is what I answered to initially, to say that the party in government it's not normal, right? The party in government is always underwater, and the opposition and a third term is always the one leading.
At this point, it's done.
At this point, at this juncture, yes.
There is absolutely nothing that I have seen in Jamaica that is indicating that the PNP is in the ascendancy. Nothing.
I would, and I am not in Jamaica, neighbor, and I, based on all my social media searches and all the places that I've looked and all the things that I've seen this government doing, I don't think that there's anything out there to suggest that the PNP could be
Barry, when you're losing an election, and when you're winning
yes,
the
of
election,
course.
you know it too, And I've argued that there is no compelling narrative in Jamaica that suggests that the people want a change. I don't see it.
No, I don't see it either, neighbor.
Yeah. I've said this to you already, neighbor. Right? You and I have this discussion. I'm saying the People's National Party, especially coming out of opposition, when they are going to win an election, they usually win big. And the fact is that both polls are showing a statistical dead heat does not spell well for the People's National Party. Okay? Because at this time, months away from an election, a government seeking a third term, the People's National Party, if they are going to win this election, there should be at least 5% point clear ahead.
Considering that they have been campaigning for 4 years.
Yeah, considering
4 years, right?
that they have been campaigning for 4 years and they're going up against a government going for its third term.
Not only a government going for a third term, but a very
A
impressive
performing government.
Yeah, but
Yes.
but you mentioned earlier, neighbor and Barry, fatigue and fatigue, right?
which can be taken care of with an effective election campaign.
Yeah, because you know that in the context of Jamaica, right? And we don't know if this time around is going to be different, right? Primarily, our electorate do not vote for performance per se. This election is going to be the litmus test for that. But at the same time, how I'm viewing this, at this time, the People's National Party has been out there campaigning for 4 years. You're going up against a government, right? Going for your third term, a performing government, and to be neck and neck in the poll, knowing based on historical data that when the People's National Party, a matter of fact, when they win in any election, whether they're in government or out of government, they usually win big. When it comes to close election, the Labour Party always win election. Because the last two elections, apart from 2020, 2007 and 2016, the Labour Party win those two elections by a narrow margin. So I'm saying this poll, it's clear to me that some skewing was done, and they're just giving the People's National Party a little incentive to see if they can do better. The next poll result that comes out, right, closer to the election, if Dan Anderson have the People's National Party leading, then I think he's going to be embarrassed after the election has called. One more point before I leave. In 2016, when I saw Dan Anderson on TVJ, and while the results was coming in, even though it was competitive, he was very much uncomfortable in his seat. He called that election wrong. The only person that called that election for the Labour Party was a Trinidad pollster by the name of Derek Ramsamouche. He's the only one that picked the Labour Party win. I saw Dan Anderson in that seat on TVJ. He was twisting, turning, his eye was rolling in his head, he was all over. If he continues on this path, he's going to find himself embarrassed. In the 2007 election, it's the same strategy he employed. He has the Labour Party behind in every poll except the final poll. Except the final poll before the election, he has the Labour Party winning by a 2 or 3 percentage points. I'll land right there.
Well,
right.
you had a great intervention, Carl. Thank you so much. Chops.
Right.
Chops Media.
Yeah, man, I'm here. How you doing?
Good night to you. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, thank you, sir. Very well.
Chops,
very well.
how is the you know I noticed, Chops, that the opposition PNP did not comment at all on the Blue Dot poll, but they have been having a field day with this one. How is the party interpreting these polls?
You're talking about how the JLP interpret these
Yes.
polls. Well, the JLP is not one to bash polls, nor is it one to comment heavily on polls, but we accept what poll numbers are and we use them as a guide. We are mindful that a poll is a snapshot of a moment in time.
Yes.
And could reflect what, in other words, look at what you've seen now from Dan Anderson. Whenever you pay, and greetings to the fellows, the gentlemen in the box, they are spot on. I've been here for a little while listening, man. You guys are spot on. But let me say this to your neighbor. When you have a desired outcome, when you want a particular outcome, you know exactly where to go. Now, poll is used as a tool, is one of the tools in the PNP's campaign arsenal. They use it, and they use it quite effectively. They use it and use it quite effectively. And what they have done now is to skew a poll. And I will say that without any fear of contradiction, because I know exactly what they have done. We've worked with pollsters before, we've seen polls, we've analyzed polls. What the PNP would have done is to commission a poll with Dan Anderson. They require a particular result from Dan Anderson. So what Dan Anderson would do is, and I can challenge him any day, anytime, is to go in a particular area, a particular community where you would get the desired numbers. No one is saying that you did not conduct a poll. Nobody can say Dan Anderson didn't do a poll. Nobody can say he didn't speak to people. He did. But the big question is where? Where did you go and do the poll? Because that determines the result. And I think what they did was to go to the PNP enclaves, conduct a poll to give them the result. Now, what must be, what we all have to look at and question is, if you can go into a PNP stronghold, or if it is that you are skewing a poll to show that you are strong, and the best you can come with is somewhere in the region of a statistical dead heat with a party.
But there is wisdom in that, Chops.
Yeah, with a party going in for a third term. One of your gentlemen here said it earlier. A party going for a third term, which is unusual. Parties don't win third term easily globally.
Yes.
Globally, it is a hard nut to crack, right? And for the party to, I believe, skew a poll, and the best you could come with is a statistical dead heat, when it says something about where we are. Yeah, it says it.
I was trying to bring some credibility to the polls, to the skewing of the poll, basically.
Yes. Well, and he's right, because what he did, and he does bring credibility to it, because what he has done is say to you that, well, I looked at 1,150 persons. Where did I look at them? You didn't ask me that. And one of the things that Blue Dot did, which was impressive, is to also provide the demographic of where, location, and these are GPS monitored locations and where they visit. You will not get that from a Dan Anderson, I guarantee you.
All right, Chops. Where is the party now in terms of its election preparedness and readiness? Because quite frankly, if it's even by perception, there is a perception developing in the country that the elections are going to be close. How is the party positioning itself to campaign, to distance itself from the PNP?
Well, I have said this on your program before and on other programs, that I have seen several elections in my time, and the strongest organized JLP I've ever seen, the most organized JLP I've ever seen would have been this one. I've never seen, and look, I'm the first.
And most united.
Anybody, well, that again too, but anybody who knows me know that I have absolutely no fear in criticizing my party when it is that we're not doing what we're supposed to do. And I'm saying it to you, neighbor, that in my time of watching politics and participating in politics is the most organized I've ever seen the Jamaica Labour Party. And let me tell you, it's not the fanfare. It is the strategic and structured approach that they are taking. I don't know. This is like a campaign that is being run by some of the greatest international strategies that we have seen globally. Look, you know, I don't want to come here and pretend like we don't have work to do. We have a lot of work to do. And even as much as I'm saying to you that we are well organized, well united and ready to go, and the work is being done. But I will also say to you that we still have work to do, and we're still working. As I speak to you now, we have several teams out in the field as we speak, erecting billboards and paraphernalia, you know, sensitizing the public and sensitizing people of the Jamaica Labour Party. Right now, minutes till after 9, and they were out there on the street up until 2 o'clock a couple of days ago, getting that done. So there's a level of coordination and organization that we've never seen before. And for a party going into a third term, I am pleased. I'm very, very pleased with where we are. It is for us to lose, not for the PNP to win.
To win, definitely. And Chops, you know, one of the things I don't see anything that the PNP has that they could say that the government, any era of non-performance, that they could probably bring to the public to say, listen, this is a era of weakness for the government that they've been knocking. The only thing that they've brought to the table is the Prime Minister's statutory declaration and his 28 bank accounts. And the very same thing they did in 2020 with his house, you know, right? And you know the results of that. So it's like they say only a fool actually does the same thing the same way and expects a different result.
You're correct, you know. You're correct, and you're very, very correct. The thing is, traditionally, neighbor, a party, an incumbent going on to a third term, and Jamaica's political landscape in of itself usually votes out a government.
Government, right?
Right? And they usually vote out a government because there is something fundamentally wrong, flawed with the government. You usually, for example, in 2007, when the PNP got voted out, the JLP got voted in after 18 and a half consecutive years.
Yeah.
The country had traffic bureau was a big thing.
Right.
We had the 1990s FinSac, which was fresh in the minds of persons still. And those two were catalysts for change. In the 1970s, coming right up to 1980, when the PNP was voted out, it was because of so-called democratic socialism that
yes.
the country down that tube, and they were voted out. So and you don't have that issue now. There's no such issue for the PNP to galvanize support around to say get the country to rally to vote out a JLP. You'll find PNP supporters now who will tell you that, look, you know, the truth is, me a PNP, but Andrea go on good. That's a popular saying in certain quarters.
Basically, you'd have seen people switching sides, yes?
Yeah, we have 9 minutes. Pitch to the listeners, Chops, why it is important that the Jamaica Labour Party be retained. I'll give you 3 or 4 minutes. Go ahead.
Let me tell you, this is probably one of the easiest ball to hit out the park. You know, Jamaica has a history. Jamaica has a history of stagnation, a history of low performance, low growth, and just high crime rate, the whole 9 yards. And all of these things that have held us back for several decades are things that we are boasting about now, are things that the world is looking at us and modeling what we are doing. So everything, 20 years ago, every single issue that Jamaica has that would have been a problem to us, that was causing us pain and suffering as a country, all of these things now are being used as a model globally because we have fixed them. Look at our crime rate, for example. That's the biggest thing, and I'll jump at that quickly because bear in mind, folks, that if you put the two political parties together and you were to measure how crime is managed by both, you will see that it's chalk to cheese. Check the period under the PNP, the period under the GLP. It is under the GLP that you have always had a reduction, significant reduction in murders. So I have no doubt that when the voting public start to measure these things, they are going to look at these basic, and I call them basic now because we have found the formula. Not saying to you that we are perfect, but we have found the formula to securing the country. Secure Jamaica has worked perfectly. We've increased the police force, we've increased the military, spending $80-90 billion on national security, and we're getting the results. So the average Jamaican now, young people have never seen it this good. Older people in Jamaica have never seen it this good. And for persons living in the diaspora, if there has ever been a time that they have seen Jamaica in a light, in a way that they are motivated to come home, it is now. I am a product of that. I lived in the United States for 12 years, and I have absolutely no regret in saying I am ready to come back to Jamaica. So I tell you, you know, there's so much to say. It takes a whole program for us to sit here and tell you all of the reasons.
Finally, chops. The man Holness, Andrew Michael Holness. There are many people who I have spoken to that feels that he is deserving of this third term. That he has so led the country through very difficult periods. You know, a lot of people, chops, do not recognize how significant the economic recovery of Jamaica has been. People in Jamaica, you know. And when you put within that the whole matter of COVID and the leadership that he provided, that it would be a tragedy to not give him a third term. There is significant goodwill in the country for Holness. Don't you think so?
There is significant goodwill, and there's also one factor, neighbor, that we have not talked about enough, is the fact that middle class, the people who usually don't participate in the democratic process of voting, the middle class who have always just stayed home and leave voting up to the people at the lower level.
Yes.
The middle class is motivated to come out and vote for the first time.
Yes.
I have in a couple of other discussions that I believe that this election, and you can write this down, neighbor, this election is going to be perhaps the highest voter turnout we've had since 1980. And
wow.
I put money on that. It is going to be the highest voter turnout since 1980.
What do you think is going to drive that?
Because the middle class is going to, and the direct impact of the country's government's performance, the impact it's having on young people in particular. You heard most of the meetings that we're attending now, the demographic is young people. A lot of those persons are coming out. And when you're able to attract young people, who usually are the ones who are very flip-floppish and finicky, they're not stable, and they're coming out, they're motivated to vote. We just did, 2 weeks ago, one of my scrutineers out in the field, and when they came back at the end of it and told me that they did 56 verifications, and about 35 of the 56 are young people, and he didn't have to do a canvas because most of the young people who we had verified are wearing Choose Jamaica band and other paraphernalias that would suggest that they're lining up with the JLP.
What you saying to me?
Yes. And that's just one scrutineer. That's
One
just
of
one
the
scenario.
things, before you go, that the People's National Party is very good at is this whole matter of misinformation.
Right.
I've just gotten something where the the PNP has put out something about the poll, suggesting how many seats they are going to win. Well, I know that you guys must have a strategy as to how you are going to counteract that. But would you want to speak a little on this in social media at this time, suggesting that the People's National Party is winning the election? No, sir.
No, and I tell you what, it is something that, social media is good and it's bad.
Yes.
We're living in a period now where you have to be really careful of what you read. My father usually, as kids say, you must believe half you see and none at all that you hear. But you're in an era now that you have very little control over what people say on social media, right? We have very little control over it. However, I will say to you that one of our strategy is, and you would have heard this publicly from the Prime Minister, we are being consistent as it relates to disseminating factual information. We are not countering the PNP with propaganda for propaganda. So you're telling a lie, then I'm going to plan a lie too. No. We are countering the PNP's narrative with facts. And every single time that we have a toss-up, we have a discussion, and the PNP will bring you a barrage of misinformation, and you bring a matches box full with facts, you will win that fight. Nothing beats facts. So our counter to that propaganda machine, the PNP, is to continue remain consistent with factual information, supported by evidence, and that's all you have to do in order to win this fight. There's nothing you can do, because you can't tell them what to say and what not to say. But if you arm yourself with the facts, you're going to win the fight, and that's the road that we're on.
Yes. Chops, one thing I want, neighbor, before you come in,
yes,
one thing I want to say: when you are in a fight, the person who complains the most is the one that is losing. And if you listen to the narrative on the streets now, every day you get up, all you hear the PNP doing is complaining about what the JLP is not doing in terms of to the ombudsman and other places.
Yes, that is
true. The Glean I'm reading, with just weeks left within which the next election is due to be announced. Weeks, Chops?
Yes. Weeks?
Yes. Well, the Glean is saying that the election will be announced within weeks.
Plural, weeks could be 52.
Could be 52, yes. It could be 104.
It could be 26.
Yes, yes.
But the truth is, the elections are close. Close as in the time for it to be called. But what I will say to you, though the elections are near, the JLP doesn't have any strategy other than to do what we have never, a matter of fact, not we, no political party has ever done before, which is to craft a strategy around performance. No other government has been able to come to the poll to say to the Jamaican people, vote for us because we have done this. We have performed, we have done well. No other government has been able to do that. Everybody else relies on the incumbent to do something stupid and get voted out.
You know what it will do? You know what it will do to Chaps? It will make whatever manifesto the government is putting out more believable, because we have proven that we have been able to do the things that we said that we're going to do. So if we said that we're going to commit to other things that we're going to do, then you are going to believe that the government is going to do it.
The first manifesto, Deba, just before you come in, the first manifesto from 2016 coming up to 2020 was analyzed by a couple of journalists. I'm going to find that report on it. And you can do it. I would challenge you, neighbor. One of the good programs that you could do is if we could go through the 2016 manifesto presented by the Jamaican Labour Party and the one presented from 2020. I would share this space with you any day, and we could analyze those two manifestos, and we could look at them and see what percentage of that manifesto, those two manifestos,
Let's do
would have
that.
been
Let's do that on
complete?
Saturday.
I think that would be a good show, because I will tell you that at least 95% of 2016 manifesto was completed, and the other 5% was in train, right? And for 2020, I would want to give it about a 98.5%, with the 2% in train as well. So when
Okay.
you have that level of performance,
Yes.
it's hard.
Yes.
It's hard.
And also then, Chops, whatever the
Yes.
government is committing to for the next 5 years,
Yes, sir.
it is almost certain that they will do it. The final thing I want to ask you before I leave, Chops, is how confident are you? Be reasonable and honest with us and our listeners. How confident are you that the Labour Party will take the third term, and by how much at this point? Tell me.
I am very confident that we'll take the third term. I have absolutely zero doubt as to whether or not we're going to win the election. I know the number of seats that we are projected to win, that can be debated, because everybody will have an opinion where that is concerned. But
Yes.
there's absolutely no debate as to whether or not we're going to win the seat. And I want to say that there might not be any debate either that we will win a 2/3 majority in the House of Parliament.
I agree with you, chaps.
I go at least at that. I put a certainty on that. That I'm guaranteeing you, neighbor, that we will win a 2/3 majority in Parliament. Two things you can put in your notebook. So after
Yes.
you can buy me
Well,
a
it a tape, you know. You are saying that you didn't itch in your answer, Chops, which means that you are overwhelmingly confident that the third term is locked up.
I save and except force. It has to be a miracle for that not to happen. But I would say to you that not just that the third term is locked up. I am saying to you that I believe, based on the work that the JLP has done, the government has done, that, and I said JLP separately from the government. Neighbor, listen to me carefully.
Yes,
You're
sir.
talking about a JLP. Traditionally, the political party has been chastised, demonized, labeled as government farm, but party now do nothing. The party now do this, the party now do that. Workers now do this, workers disgruntled. Neighbor, when was the last time you heard of that sort of complaint about workers not feeling it? The workers feel disgruntled. It doesn't exist anymore, because the party does listen. The party listen to what is out there, and they have remedied those problems. They're not perfect. They're not 100%.
How is
but they have
Dr.
done things.
Holness? How is Dr. Holness, Chops? You're close to him. How is he doing?
Oh, this is not high spirit. He's about to lace up his clerks now. I don't know how this gentleman does it, But first up in the morning, last to go out in the night. I don't know how he does it.
Can I tell you something, chaps?
Yes.
I went to the Clark store close by me a while ago, right? The lady said, Mr. Martin, I'm gonna call Bluffton, I'm gonna call Charleston, and I'm gonna call another store. And she called all of those stores, and she said they got into stocks of green clerks and they can't find any, and they just don't know what's the phenomenon. Why all these green clerks are selling out. And she said, I was trying to get me one, and she said, listen, me, she's gonna try and find one for me, and I should pick it up tomorrow. That is, I'm just telling you, that happened today. No green clerks anywhere from where I live to South Carolina, and I don't live in South Carolina. She was calling across the border to find me a green clerks.
Gonna leave it.
Well,
there.
All right, neighbor, you take it easy, man.
Thank you so much. Chops.
Yes.
I'm gonna get in touch with you. Read the manifesto. Show you here.
Yeah, man. I think you should do that. I'll be more than happy to sit with you and to go through and explain to you all the stuff in the manifesto, and what has been completed, what is in trend. And matter of fact, there are things that we have done that was not in the manifesto.
Yes.
And there are things in the manifesto that we promised 10 and we did 100.
Yes.
You know?
And of course,
I'm excited.
the party is at this point working on its 2025 manifesto.
Oh, absolutely. There's a manifesto committee that is almost completed.
All right.
That is almost ready for the road.
What's on for this weekend, Chops, in terms of meetings?
There are meetings scheduled for, I think there's a meeting in Kingston and Manchester. One in Manchester and one in Kingston. Not quite sure. I haven't seen that schedule. I haven't looked at it, but there's very few meetings left though. Central St. Mary, Western St. Mary had their workers conference recently, Bobby Montague, that went well. But we are expected to wrap up all of these meetings. Don't neighbor think about it though, you know. When the JLP finalize these meet and greets that we're having now, these meetings, what do you think is left for us in terms of campaigning?
Well, the era council, you know, you bring the era councils together and have some mass meetings.
Do you think that the JLP could call a mass meeting anytime within the next 3 weeks or a month in any location other than the national stadium or the national arena?
Well, no, but you will have to have some
Still can't hold.
You will have to have some mass meetings.
I ask that neighbor because based on the climate
Yes.
on the ground now.
No. Let me tell you something, sister. I was at a particular place today,
Yes.
and I can tell you this. There is something happening on the ground in Jamaica that I don't even know the posters are picking up. There seemed to be a quiet appreciation of the government, an appreciation, I think, among people who will not talk to pollsters, but just people who have sat and watched Jamaica and recognized that for some of them, that somehow Jamaica is beginning to look like a place that people want to live, work, retire, raise families, and so forth. And I think they are going to be prepared to support the government. I really think so.
And that's why I'm saying to your neighbor, that's why I'm willing to bet you about
Yeah,
that irritated
so.
water
Yeah.
at the end of the election.
Yeah.
Chaps, a lot of people don't know what irritated water is, you know, chaps. I need to say.
I think neighbor might have a good idea. But neighbor, I'm putting on the table a bottle of irritated water that at the end of this election, we will see the highest voter turnout since 1980.
I really hope so. I really hope so. And I tell you this. I've said to people that one of the reasons why and why I started this program is the ambivalence that I saw in the society towards the government at the time. I just couldn't understand how it was that the government was not getting greater support because of its performance. And you know, we really don't have any other government to compare this one to, you know. This one here has been quite exceptional, and I don't know that any other will match it. It has really laid some pillars that should see Jamaica better in the next 20 to 30 years.
But,
I may not be around.
But neighbor, you said something there just now, neighbor.
And
when you said
neighbor,
they were not. Go ahead, Casey. No, go ahead, Casey.
Chaps,
Yes.
good night.
Good night, my brother.
If we have anything near a high voter turnout, like
Yes.
you're suggesting, then
Yes.
people like Bobby Montague and Marlene Malawi Fort will be winning by over 2,500 votes.
Yes. Yes. And Casey, you're a person who look at numbers, neighbor.
Yes.
And let me tell you something, and this is something that you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? in a parish, a cluster of seats usually gel together, correct? So
Yes, yes.
if there are weak seats,
Yes.
if there are weak seats in a certain cluster, and they are weak, so weak, coupled with a weak government, those weak seats will bring you down. But the other side of the coin is also true.
Yes.
When you're in a parish or a cluster of strong seats, the weak one among four, for example, the weak one is going to be pulled over the line by the strong ones. So I give you a typical example, and I know
And that's the reason why.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, Casey. No, I was saying
And
to
that's the
you,
reason why I keep on forecasting 4-0 in St. Elizabeth and 5-0 in St. James.
you're correct, and you're 100% correct, because though persons might want to suggest that West Central is not as strong as they think it is, and I disagree wholeheartedly with the persons who share that view, because there's something, and I would not say it on air here, that factors into that narrative that a lot of persons don't know about. You would have to be a product of the soil to know why that narrative prevails or why that narrative is out there. But I'm saying to you that based on the strength of the seats that surrounds West Central, for example, a Central St. James, and St. James neighbor votes en bloc. Am I correct, Casey? They vote en bloc in a sense that they are motivated by each
Yes,
other.
you are correct.
That is how St. James don't campaign
Yes, they
separately,
vote
you know.
together.
We don't campaign separately, you know, neighbor. When we have a
Yes.
motorcade, it's all of us together, you know.
No.
Yeah, I was a little bit distracted.
Yes,
From
and yes, and both party do it, and that's why the whole of Granville is campaigning in South St. James, and people are
Right.
saying
let me
Nikisha Burchell is leading.
let me tell you something. I've been wanting to close. The People's National Party have stalled. They're not going to go any further than where they are now.
That's it. They're maxed out.
They're maxed out, and you know they have been maxed out quite a while now. You know, this is the best the PNP will poll. I think that the Labour Party has about 5 or 6 points out there to pick up before the election.
Well, the Gleaner article that you read, neighbor, speaks volume to what you're saying. Think about
they
it.
said that?
But think about it. 7.5% lead. The Gleaner said, right?
Neighbor,
No, if 7.5% lead holds, the margin of error is 3%.
Yes.
So it could be 10.5, right?
Yes.
Remember we had that discussion,
I
neighbor?
think there's going to be a late, and I'm not a prophet. Well, I do prophesy in some other place. But I think there's going to be a late surge for the Labour Party that is going to shock even themselves.
But and I agree with you on that. But
They're going to be
also,
shocked themselves.
and
Yes.
neighbor,
Yes. Yes, sir.
that late surge that you're talking about have actually already happened. It's just not being
Well,
reported.
it started.
And if you really get the result of the Dan Anderson poll and analyze it yourself, you will see that the writing is on the wall.
Well, hold that until tomorrow, Casey. I am.
You need
I am
no
telling
other
you-
poll but the Dan Anderson poll.
Yeah, I am telling you that the People's National Party have maxed out. They can't.
Diminishing returns.
I
Diminishing returns, neighbor.
I
Right.
don't see them getting much more than they have now.
Yes.
Unless
Right now,
the only thing,
the election is between the Labour Party and the Labour Party.
and the Labour Party. And that's what I'm about to say to you.
Yes.
Unless the JLP does something that is so politically off the chain.
Yes.
If we were to go into the elections right now, as is, with 7.5% lead and a margin of error of 3%. And if KC predicts right and there's a surge, it means that the margin of error would be on the side of the JLP,
On the side of
we would move from 7%, 7.5 to 10.5.
10.5%, yes.
So the worst
Listen,
case scenario,
I don't know the party's internal strategy, but you see when this party here start reminding people of its performance,
well, we are doing that now.
and people
We
start
are.
linking the reality. You can't pick up the highway, them, you know, and then bus
Neighbor.
and then
Neighbor, there's-
Chops,
yes,
Chops Media, as a JLP stalwart that you are in terms of campaigning and organization, do you identify the political realignment where at this point the JLP is the one who will have to lose seats like Southeast St. Mary and East Portland and a few other seats that were normally ticked off for the PNP before an election?
I can turn off my camera.
Yeah, man.
Chops?
All right. I think he's.
You hear me, Casey?
Yeah, we hear
No,
you now.
I didn't hear what you said.
No, man, I'm here.
Just hearing you. Okay, you heard what I said?
No, I was saying to you. I was saying to you that I listen. Yeah, go again, Casey.
Yes.
Go one more time,
Do
Casey.
you realize the political realignment that the country have gone through, where seats like St. Mary Southeast, East Portland are for the up to the JLP to lose? Those are normally seats that are ticked off the PNP column going into an election.
But that is where the PNP problem lies. If there are seats, that we know traditionally, 35 years, 45 years, 38 years, the PNP held on to East Portland. Yeah? And that seat is now a safe JLP seat. Yeah? The PNP held on to Central Manchester for quite some time. And it seemed to me like Rhoda Crawford has done her work and will maintain that seat.
Carry on is another one.
If the PNP cannot overturn some of the traditional seats that they had in their column, sure seats for PNP, and they have not shown any sign of, a matter of fact, the opposite is also factual. Because there are some seats that the PNP had as traditional seats. Seats like in Westmoreland, Western Westmoreland, Eastern Westmoreland. Eastern Westmoreland, the JLP has never won that seat. I don't remember. Who was it?
Euphema Williams. Euphema Williams. Yes.
Right? The JLP has never seen that seat. Danny Lawrence took it by a very slim margin. The PNP installed their general secretary. It gets no bigger than your Gen Sec.
Chops, I must disagree with you there. You know, they say not because you have been bumped up to first chair, that doesn't mean you can compose a symphony. Having the title of Gen Sec, General Secretary is one thing, but Dr. Dayton Cameron is own general when it comes to politics.
But
he's an asset to the Jamaica Labour Party.
General
I'm
Costa.
agreed with you now. You're agreed with me now. You said you disagree, but you're not disagreeing with me. You're agreeing with me. Because the point I am making, really making, is that the PNP installed in that seat one of their strongest soldiers, or should have been their strongest soldiers. It gets no stronger. Yeah. The stronger you go from the Gen Sec is actually the party leader.
party
I
leader,
mean,
yes.
you have your general secretary in one of the weakest seats of the JLP, and he's not able to come out and say the deal is over. I don't have to campaign. I'm going somewhere to help other
No,
people.
he may well win, but he really have work to do. The general
That's what I'm
secretary
saying.
will be tied down in in the constituency he's representing until after 5 p.m. on election evening.
There's no Mackenzie to
Travi is
campaign
online.
for the guys.
Let's hear what he has to say. Go ahead, Travi.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night, Travis. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
Give thanks, man. Give
Blessings,
thanks.
blessings, blessings. You know, me coming on is really a strategy because the conversation is so strong. I had to come on to see if I can bring some of my listeners to come and listen to what's going on here. But let me add also that St. James is fully green, St. Elizabeth green, and Westmoreland is coming in green to the shock of many people. That's my 2 cents.
Well, that's really 2 cents.
Yes, I don't want to sound cockatoo, but the JLP, for the first time in the history of politics, the JLP can afford to be swept in Westmoreland, Hanover, and St. Mary, and still win the general election easy.
Wow.
You don't beat this team.
Wow.
But that's what I'm saying.
And I'm speaking with no fanfare or emotion.
Listen, what you just said there, Casey, and I am a veteran at this now. I've been at this for quite a while. And let me tell you something. What you have said there just now, that the JLP has so much in the bag that they can afford to get beaten in a few parish, not a few seats, a few parishes, and still maintain state power. You're spot on, and I don't want anybody to interpret that as being, too certain or complacency because you have that sort of mentality.
No complacency, chaps. Do you know that I have 25 safe seats for the JLP, and I'm so reserved that I did not use Holness, East Rural, St. Andrew. I did not use Floyd Green, South West St. Elizabeth. I did not use Marlene Malawi, Fort West Central, St. James, and I did not use Alanda Turlang, East Central, St. Catherine.
So where did you pick up those 25, if I may ask?
Well, I guess you're going to tune into the show for our next forecast and carry all your listeners and followers.
I will definitely do that. I usually support. I'm scheduling one with Neighbor, so we can look at the Manifesto of 2016 and the Manifesto of 2020 to do an analysis of it.
And I know I don't have time for forecast, but Neighbor, the JLP have really left it late in Northeast Manchester, but they knew what they were doing. They had the team. And Northeast Manchester.
Sorry. Are we doing the Labour Party 25 seats on Thursday or tomorrow?
Yes.
Thursday.
Well, Thursday, because I do have a lot of work to do on Wednesdays.
Okay. All right.
I cannot make plans. Yes. I think the way Northeast Manchester is being energized and galvanized now, it will spread to Northwest Manchester, Northwestern Clarendon, and Central Manchester, and South Shillong.
All remarks involvement is having a multiplier effect.
That's a good.
Yes, and I did mention the impressive team Warren Newby have in Northwest Clarendon, and I want to tell you that RJ Marks has a stronger team.
What are you saying to me?
Yeah, man. RJ Marks.
Yes,
Listen.
I'm talking about a team of Omar Miller, the Craighead councillor. He's very strong. John McCulsky, the one with technical principal, Danville Walker, and a few I won't even name.
Some I won't even call because they probably would wish to be, left alone.
They still in the shadows.
Remember that RJ Marks card is as good as any ace in the hole.
Yes.
And I tell you,
you mean that the rising tide is lifting all boats around there on that area?
but neighbor,
As I told you, the JLP would need to do whenever they choose a candidate, because that's a very important seat. That's where the answerness is to wake up the whole of Manchester.
Oh,
but listen to this, guys. Let me put this to you all.
wow.
Neighbor.
Ah,
The
Foresight,
JLP.
hold on. Foresight, I see you can't go to your bed. 2 minutes to 10 o'clock. Go and hook up your girlfriend, man. Go ahead.
But my neighbor, let me ask you, and I want to ask the rest of the panelists this question. For those of you who are familiar with what the campaign was like in 2020 and what it is today, two things I want to ask you. The Jamaica Labour Party as a political organization going into this general election, the party that is, would you say that the party appears to be more popular than they were in 2020? And the
Yes,
second part of the question, hold on, Casey, two questions in one. The second part of the question is, when you look at the Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, would you say that the Prime Minister is more popular in 2025 than he was in 2020? So give me the party and give me the leader. Popularity, 2020 versus 2025.
Yes, chaps. Even the politics is more popular in 2025 because it was a low-key election campaign in 2020. What happened in 2020 is that the JLP was at in good spirit and at good strength from 2018, 2019, and the PNP was weak. This time, it's a stronger JLP that have to do 1.5 years of political work because of some of the result in the local government election and the push by the PNP to that really pushed the JLP to really do some political work. And they have organized themselves and they're coming with the best political team ever, the most powerful political team to ever come in an election. And I keep on telling people that it's a stronger PNP than 2020, a way stronger PNP, and they may suffer the same fate.
So the consensus from your argument there, Casey, is that the JLP as a political organization is stronger today than it was in 2020.
Yes, because they didn't need to hit second gear in 2020.
Right.
They are second gear and cranking up now.
Right. And they are getting the results. Now, the reason I'm asking you that is because I also wanted to ask you about the leader. So what's your take on the leader going in now?
The leader is more popular. The leader is more loved. Yes, the leader is more appreciated.
So you're saying the leader's coattail is longer than 2020?
Yes, it is. And a lot of people who didn't even get to support the leader, I think they needed to support the leader in 2025 will rise up and support the leader. And if you follow the social media trend, you will see that.
So if what you're saying there holds, if you are correct, and I would like for it to be correct, because I have the same views. But neighbor, if that is so true, if PNP was that popular in 2020 and they were able to take home 49 seats to the PNP's 14, with a stronger JLP, a more popular Andrew Holness, a more organized political party in the form of the JLP, even though publicly, in parentheses, publicly, the PNP is not as divided as they were in 2020. And I put that in parentheses because I'm not saying that they're not divided, but they're just not divided publicly. With all of these factors,
Sir Chops.
why is it
Chops.
Sir Chops, I believe the question was to the panel and then you give your closing remarks. But I think you're gone into closing before I even get a chance to add a few cents.
All right, Chavi.
But let me say this though. I believe the leader is more popular now than he was in 2020. I believe the party is even more popular now than it was in 2020. And I'll give my reason for both. The party, in terms of the team, the candidates, we have seen, a smooth transition in changing of the guard, and we see we're young, brilliant professionals are being ushered in to the likes of Matthew Samuda, Mr. Save Right. We see even Audrey Marks, who is very, very big. She is a bright, smart person in the professional world. She is a giant. Let me say that. Understand? We see where and the party has become more proven because of the work that has transitioned to the public in this election cycle that we're about to close. This in where the performance is now clearer to the people. I believe the vision is clearer to the people. People are no more able to see where we're going and say, yes, this is where we want to go. No, concerning the Prime Minister, why I say that he's more popular now. And I see people who were on the fence is now saying, are people who are PNP saying, they are PNP, but Andrew's doing well. That document is far reaching. Andrew's doing well. People are switch over. And guess what? The defense that you will face when you speak against Andrew is no leader, in my experience and in my time, has had the defense of the general public like Andrew has right now. My 2 cents.
Nemo,
Definitely.
I did say that when we look at the numbers, I don't see right now a seat. I don't see a candidate who is performing so well in the People's National Party who has a hedge over any of the 49 that we have right now. That we can say, well, this person has a hedge based on what is happening. I mean, I hear them they talk about Montague being underwater, but we know Montague. And with this popularity of the party and the popularity of the leader, don't be surprised that we will not only take the 49, but probably a couple more to it. Because I see.
So you preempt me there, because that's what I am. That's what I was lining up to get to, and I really wanted to ask you guys that based on your own analysis, your own reading, which is spot on. Why is it that we cannot fathom that the seat count in Parliament could seriously be increased?
Honestly,
Yes.
and that though, chaps.
Yes.
I think it's touch and go.
Yes.
I think it's touch and go. I forgot to mention that the PNP is also way stronger than they were in 2020. And if you're making an honest assessment, you must figure out that also. I think the JLP have missed some opportunities in some constituency that they got the chance to lead for the first time in 30 years, in 20 years, in 40 years. I think we have not made a good showing. We have not made full use of the opportunity in some constituency, have to change our candidate and so on. And the optics didn't look good, and it really give the PNP traditional supporter who were hanging their head a chance to lift their head and said, okay, JLP come here and them no do nothing. And really and truly, not everybody is of the mental maturity to really look at things from an unbiased and make a decision from the perspective of Jamaica. So there are people who will be coming out to support PNP because they think they are PNP. They don't see themselves as Jamaican to look and choose what is best for Jamaica. And a lot of those people will be coming out to vote. And I think it will be difficult to maintain this the 49 seat. It's not impossible. I think the popularity is there and the strength is there. But this PNP is stronger. They are more united. I wouldn't say fully united, but they are more united than they were. And because of the pandemic, the government have done well in the pandemic, but it's still a pandemic. We have still been through a pandemic, and it rises the misery index for years, for about 3 years of this 5-year tenure. And a lot of people don't really understand governance and the impact of certain disasters. So they blame the JLP, and even if they wanted to support the JLP, they would have stayed away, say they are fed up and they are staying away from the political process. So not because we have a stronger JLP and even a more popular Andrew Holness, that doesn't really matriculate into 49 or more seats. It is possible, but if you look at the other side of the card, it will be difficult.
Hey, Casey, let me say this to you, see? We have seen a number of high-ranking PNP supporters who have come over to the Jamaica Labour Party's team. And if you see so many high-ranking people coming over, I mean that people lower down who would have actually switched to. And we have not seen any of them going back to the People's National Party. And we probably may be saying, if you look at what is happening, look at all the press conference that these people keep. Alfred Dawes was by himself. Damian Crawford was by himself. The females were by themselves. Who else kept a press conference? Somebody else kept a press conference. And they were by themselves, right? You don't see the leadership of the team surrounding these people to give them support, right? Damian Crawford would tell you that he did not support the demonstration at Hero Circle because he wasn't there. I don't see the PNP as united as we are giving them. And so I tell you this.
As I said, Barry, they are more united than they were in 2020.
Yes.
That's what I said.
So basically I'm saying with the strength of the leader and with the popularity of the party, if the PNP take a JLP seat, we'll take 2 for that one. That much I'll tell you.
All right, guys.
And I'll land there.
I'm gonna have to leave it there for tonight.
Well, it's not impossible, but I'm just trying to remind you guys that in my opinion, it will be difficult to keep these 49 seats. It's not impossible because the JLP is the better team, but it will be difficult, and I think it's a stronger PNP than 2020.
What a show tonight. Is a marathon. Barry, thank you so much. Tari, thank you. Tarvi, thank you so much. So Casey?
Yes, neighbor.
Thursday? Tomorrow is Wednesday, you know?
Yes, tomorrow is Wednesday.
And Thursday?
Yes, I should be joining tomorrow. I about the same time if we're on until such a time, but you know, Thursday is our big day.
Okay. What time you had a little bit of challenge this afternoon? Some internet issue or what?
It was actually work, you know.
Okay.
It was actually work.
Well,
we were short. There was a problem with the mixologist, and I couldn't leave to step in for him.
We understand. Just after 6 tomorrow, and then Thursday we're on with 25 Shore Labour Party seat. Jamaica girl?
Yes, neighbor.
I'm sorry for keeping you up so late. I understand that you are dating to be married?
Yes.
Well,
my husband says staying on the live too late.
Apologize to your husband for me. What is his name?
I'll tell you off the air.
Oh,
Congratulations, Jamaica girl.
Yes.
Thank you, Casey.
Congratulations. Uh-huh.
I thought you were already married to Jamaica though, but
I am, but it goes sometimes.
Yes.
okay.
Please,
So
please apologize to me.
who you getting married to? Manchester or Clarendon?
Manchester.
Okay.
You answer Casey on air, but you answer you don't want to answer me on air. You see. My apologies for keeping you up so late, my sister. And do apologize to the gentleman for me. Casey, take care of yourself. Jamaica girl, take care of yourself. Listeners, until tomorrow, just after 6 or just before, have a great night. Thank you for staying tuned.
And you guys,
Yes.
thank you for tapping. Nobody even had to tell you to tap tonight. You got over 100,000. Great job.
All right.
Yes.
Until
And
tomorrow, everybody.
Jamaican girl.
Yes, Casey.
Our mutual friend is from my lane, you know.
Oh, okay. Nice. That's good.
Yes. Small world.
Yeah, indeed.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.